Welcome to the Joshua Jordan Experience. Listen to gather mystical insights for an extraordinary life. Hello, my beloved friends. Welcome once again to the Joshua Jordan Experience. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I have a special treat for us in that we are talking to my good friend, Brett D. Scott, and I want to let him introduce himself to you. So we'll start with that. Hi, Brett.
Well, who knows where people are in the world at the moment, but good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm excited to catch up. And who is this person that's joining Joshua and Jordan today? Well, I am Brett D. Scott. I like to refer to myself as a metaphysical mindset coach, mentor, speaker, author, amongst other things. But without getting too confusing, the thing that I especially love is the spiritual aspect of understanding the mind. And hence, when you said, "Hey, Brett, would you be open to having some conversations?" I said, "No." No, I said, absolutely, absolutely, I will. And I think today you wanted to talk into the power of choice and creation, and really look into, I guess probably my thoughts, but also yours, because as I just said before, I feel this will be much better as a conversation rather than you interviewing me. Um, yeah, because this is your audience, and I'd love to share whatever I can, and hopefully it can add some value from a different perspective.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really pleased that you joined me for this conversation because the power of choice and creation often carries with it a sense of responsibility, and we want to explore what that is too. I thought what we would do is, you and I often have just conversations. We talk
Yeah,
about some of the most fascinating things. So I just showed up as my regular self here, and my hat, my sweatshirt, and I'm just showing up the way I would when we have a meeting, and I just want it to be as natural and flowing as possible.
yeah,
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Well, it will be, because we are good friends, and we are. I don't know if we'll explain it on this conversation, but we definitely have a Joshua connection,
Oh, yes.
which is beautiful, and I'm sure over the years, decades to follow, hopefully, hopefully we're both here. Who knows?
Yeah.
But regardless, yeah, we definitely have a very strong connection, and we like to refer to it as a brotherhood.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm yeah extremely happy to talk into it. And just before we got on air, I might add, we were talking into perfection,
Yes.
or talking into the fact, oh, I'm not my perfect self today. Well, and I said, well, actually, you are. Like we all are perfect. There's actually no imperfection at all.
That's right.
Um, yeah, and I thought, oh, I wonder if that relates to what we're talking about. And I think in essence it does, because like you said, like sort of the heading that we've come up with, it is a choice. Like you can choose to accept that that could be a reality, or you can choose to accept that every human person on the planet is absolutely imperfect.
Right. Right.
So I think it has that correlation. And when I think about the word creation, and I think about when I thought about imperfection, I thought about people who, perhaps have certain disabilities, or, have legs but can't walk, or are born without certain limbs, right? And we could look at that as being, oh, they're so, the poor person, they're without whatever we have. And so therefore we think they're not perfect, but actually they are,
Yes.
is my view. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult for us to accept in the lifetime that if we are born with a disability, perhaps born blind or born deaf or something of that nature, it was a choice. And we chose it for a reason for this lifetime because it was going to allow us to learn what it is we wanted to know.
Yeah.
So I know that from our point of view, when we look at someone who doesn't have perhaps all their senses or the ability to just get up and walk around, uh, we think, oh, yeah, we feel sorry for them, like, oh, too bad you're missing this opportunity of being human.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it was a chosen situation so that that individual soul could, you see, I said individual, that particular soul could experience what it wanted to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I know it's a challenge for us to see it that way when we
Yeah.
are just looking at life from the surface.
Oh, 100%. And I'm sure you're the same as me. I shouldn't say that because who knows, but I'm sure you would have a similar feeling towards, there are times where we fall into our human selves, as in we're, constantly making judgments or making, you know, certain decisions based on our human self. And yet that isn't always the right, well, there's no right or wrong in essence, but
In essence.
in essence, there's no right or wrong because it all leads to, an outcome. And as you said, we probably choose, part of the journey anyway in the beginning to experience what that is. Um, but bringing it back, what I'm trying to say is that I'm sure you have those moments where you do fall into that habit of being a human, rather than remembering that I'm a soul, I'm a spirit, and that's what I am, and I'm having a human experience.
Yes.
I'm not a human having a spiritual experience or a spiritual enlightenment. I'm actually I'm always the spirit, but because in our human five senses, let's say, we don't get to experience what that looks like or feels like. Well, we can maybe feel, but it's limited, it's limited, um, unless maybe like you, you're clairvoyant, maybe. And maybe there's some things you can see, but just in the human construct, from my perspective or my viewpoint, I feel like some choices that we make are based upon how we're feeling in our current reality existence that we might be experiencing.
Yes.
And then there's a deeper part to this process that I think will help everyone to enable themselves to make maybe, less head decision, more heart decision. And maybe it's even a better way of putting it is it's that head-heart connection.
Connection. That's better. I like that. We don't want to try to divide ourselves up so much.
Yeah.
We split ourselves into parts a lot. As a matter of fact, I heard you saying, I'm not a human having a spiritual experience. Yes, you are.
Okay. There you
Aren't
go.
you? You are
Yeah.
a human and
I am
you
a
are
human.
aware of your spiritual self, your whole self.
Yep.
So you are a human experiencing that. So whenever
Yeah.
somebody told me I'm not a human having a spiritual experience, I thought, well, if you're not a human, what the hell are you?
Oh, that's a good point.
Are you
Yeah.
an alien? Where did you come from?
I could be an alien.
Of course, you're a human. And
Um,
you're incarnating from your soul into a human experience. So I am a soul having a human experience
yeah,
and a human having a spiritual experience.
that's good. I like
It's
that.
this
Yeah.
and that rather
Yeah.
than this or that.
You're right. I hadn't realized I was separating them. I think maybe where I was heading was the human experience of Brett that Brett is having is limited. Like there's a limited, viewpoint versus, and again, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking, hang on. Well, that's because I'm reading into the timeline construction of humanity, but it's only ever now. So maybe what I'm about to say is incorrect. But my thinking is that there's a seemingly life and death aspect to Brett.
Yes,
And then, but then who does live on is the soul of Brett.
yes,
And Brett is the character that my soul is playing, the connected soul to, let's say, Joshua, or let's say God or the universe.
yes.
So, yeah,
Let's say that.
Let's say that.
Anyway, before we
That's good
go
to
on,
know.
I do want to clarify something. In my experience of my Jordanness, I do not consider myself clairvoyant. That means clear vision.
Yeah.
I am clairaudient.
Yeah.
So that's a distinction, but it's also a kind of a separation. So why am I trying to say, oh, I'm this, but not that? Well, we all have an identity that we filter our soul into for the course of a lifetime. And
Yeah.
that identity includes choosing, I am this, not that. Like I'm a white man, not a black man. I'm spiritual, not religious. I mean, we start making
Yeah.
all of these judgments and choices that define who I think I am. And anyway, back to what you were
Mm.
saying, though, about our wholeness, that, yeah, a lifetime appears to have a very obvious beginning. I was born in 19XYZ and
Yeah.
I will die in 2000 something or other. And so we think our life is finite, but Joshua tells me bread is eternal. The
Yeah.
lifetime of bread is eternal.
Okay.
You are eternal and infinite now.
Yeah.
Got
Yep.
it?
I have got it.
So
Yeah.
even though there'll be a point where it appears you shift your consciousness away from physical existence as Brett, the lifetime of Brett is eternal and infinite and can be revisited at any moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
these are the things Joshua teaches me about oneness that I grasp completely now, but I've been studying it for a long time. And I know that may sound confusing, but what we just summarized is I often hear Joshua say, "You are eternal and infinite now. There is no waiting for that to happen. You are at that now. And the
Yeah.
lifetime you are living will exist in eternity and infinity, and it can be revisited at any moment, even
Mm.
though you think you've moved on to another lifetime, or
Yeah.
you can always be Brett again.
Okay. Well,
And you can
that's
make different choices as Brett next time if you want to.
yeah. Well, and that's a really good point. And I'd never really thought about it in that way. So you've taught me something new, Jordan and Joshua.
Oh,
But but I had like even in the work that I do in mindset, as you know, I'm often reminding clients that they're like even though we are, used to tracking our time and days and months and years, I said when we're talking about a goal or, dream, desire, and you're moving towards it, uh you don't arrive in the future and go, woohoo, I'm here. How
yeah.
amazing is this? I always imagined the future would be like this. No, because it's always now. And so I have understood that aspect to it, but I didn't. It's interesting, right? And this is why I love these conversations because sometimes you've scratched the surface of something and then it's good to have someone who has a little bit more understanding or has received some downloaded information that you can then learn from and apply into your own thinking. And here's the part or perspective that I wanted to share with you that I'd love to get your viewpoint on. When I think about let's just call them beliefs for now, but there might be a different term for it. But when I think about and I might use the term know. And when I say I know something, it's more of a knowing. Like I have a
Yes.
knowing, and I'm pointing to my heart because usually I feel it in my heart.
Yes.
I don't feel like there could be any other answer for me. And that doesn't mean I go, well, I'm right and you're wrong. But
Right.
my question again is, what are your thoughts when it comes to your own beliefs as Jordan, as the human, and thinking about everyone who's watching, and them thinking about how they're, going through their journey of life and making, as we said, choices and decisions, and having their, their own individualized experience for the collective. Um, how do you differentiate what might be, because there's so much information out there, right?
True.
We're flooded with information now, and some
Yes.
of it, some of it quite out there, and some of it quite negative. And so how do you as Jordan differentiate yourself with what is a knowing and what is a oh that could be true. Like I feel like that's a like a belief. What's the difference for you?
And knowing, I think, is something felt. So I did put it into feeling.
Okay.
It is something felt so deeply that it guides your beliefs, right?
Yeah.
What I know that I know that I know guides my beliefs, and my beliefs create my reality. Yes.
Yeah.
So when I have a knowing, I am not easily persuaded to accept an alternative. However, wanted to expand myself into an acceptance that all alternatives are possible. So let's say I go back 5 years, let's say, and I thought this idea of aliens and UFOs was just a load of stuff.
Yep.
And I have come to realize as an alternative reality, it does have meaning. It does have purpose. And Joshua tells me that there have been civilizations on this planet in our unknown history
Yep.
where aliens did inhabit Earth, or what we would think of as alien. Why am I using the word alien? I really mean other beings, beings that
Yeah.
were not of human origin, but they were humanoid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, because you are aware of these things.
Yeah.
And so the more I open myself up to, all things are possible. Well, I cannot discredit anyone else's beliefs because what they believe is what they'll create. And
Yeah.
therefore, it is quite possible. And I've often joked that Joshua believes in Santa Claus. It's like, all right, I don't, but you do. And it's because Joshua knows that when a mass consciousness or a group within a mass consciousness holds a belief of possibility, that possibility becomes a reality. Right. So Santa
Yeah.
Claus does exist. There are at least hundreds of thousands of children who believe in Santa Claus and some adults. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we do create Santa Claus and we also create devils or deities or, all of
Yeah.
these possibilities in the realm of reality are brought about by our intent, our belief, our emotional energy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we
Do,
create it
do,
all.
do you know, I love that you just went there with what you just explained, because I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people as well. Because remember I said to you when I started the journey, when I had my breakthrough, which I call in 2018, and then I realized that, the number one value that I had to uphold was truth. And it wasn't necessarily the truth, it was my truth and to be true to
Yeah.
myself. And again, as you and I know, that's not always hasn't still hasn't been perfect, but I believe I'm on the right track, and I made a decision that I wanted to, as let's call it a personal mission. I wanted to discover the truth of everything, and I remember having a conversation with you and saying, I remember being really confused because there were so many crossing over experiences that people were sharing, and from very valid sources, like people who'd worked in, high level government, American government, you know, places, and talked about, and even what they even say, I don't know if they're working in the government at the same time, but they were talking about different things that were occurring on the planet. And I thought, how is this possible? You know? And then as you've explained it, if there's enough of a mass consciousness that are believing in whatever is being shared, then the likelihood is that could be truth. It may
Yes.
not be the truth that we get to experience as our truth. So I love that you said, and this is why I asked the question. I love that you said, even though there's a knowing, and I may not shift from, taking on board whatever someone else is suggesting is the truth, That doesn't mean that you um, tell them they're an idiot and that they should, go and read a book. It's
Right. Or believe what I believe, and then you'll
yeah,
be normal.
yeah. So, and I love that, and I think that to me, as a knowing, that to me is love. Like, when you can let go of whether someone believes in X, Y, and Z, and the only little wriggle room I might have on that is if someone is suppressing someone, like taking someone's life, or that's maybe the only part that I, at this particular point in my journey, can't comprehend how I can just be nonchalant about accepting. However, when it comes to just discussion or ideas or sharing dialogue, uh, I really don't mind if you believe in little fairies, that because I'm sure that they do at some particular level. Whatever it is that people believe in, I'm okay with,
Yeah.
as long as it's not harming anyone else or
Right.
anyone else's experience of life, then I'm absolutely okay with it. And I think that to me is a real centered acceptance of you, as well as, anyone else that's having their experience of humanity or of life,
Yes.
as we call it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a really open way of getting to acceptance. It's beyond tolerance.
Yeah.
Acceptance is beyond tolerance. And some people, their goal is just to tolerate other people being on the planet that don't believe in Jesus or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're in that point of actual resistance.
Mm.
Tolerance still includes resistance.
Yeah.
Acceptance means whatever, means you have the freedom to believe what you believe, and so do I.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Do you know,
acceptance.
I'm just remembering, just talking about tolerance, talking about, and maybe not acceptance, but definitely tolerance. I saw a conversation between a born again Christian and a Satanist. And at first, I'm watching their conversation. They were two youngish men, probably early 20s, very respectful in the way they were talking to each other. The one who was a Satanist was wearing black and slick back hair and didn't have horns, but certainly you could tell he was a Satanist. But he wasn't angry. He was very happy to have the conversation with this born again Christian. And it was actually a really good conversation because they were talking into how they found, like how the young man found Jesus in his, toughest, deepest, darkest moment, as it, tends to happen, and spoke to Jesus. And the Satanist was talking about meeting Lucifer and the talk that he had with Lucifer. And and it was really interesting because there were neither of them were attacking each other, neither of them were trying to push their their belief on each other, but they were sharing their stories
Yes.
to try and help the other one see that there could be a better way of going. And in fact, maybe the Satanist wasn't trying to pull the Jesus guy into his realm, but the Jesus one certainly seemed like he was trying to make a real point about a valid, entity that's probably more positive to follow than Satan himself, than Lucifer. But the reason I'm mentioning it is I thought it was really good to witness that there was no, it was toleration from both of them. They weren't having a go at each other. It wasn't mean. And at first, as I say, when I first saw it, I thought, is this a joke? Like, is this some sort of setup joke? But I could tell it was a real natural conversation. It was not scripted. It didn't look like they were just trying to make a mockery out of. They were both very passionate about each other's belief, And so, yeah. And so
Yes.
I think in some respects tolerance is good, but I agree with you. I think acceptance is like that is where I think this is where I think I love what you and Joshua are really about, or what the Joshua Jordan experience is really about. And it can seem like such a simple idea, and therefore it's so simple. Why should I even bother trying to understand it? Because don't I understand it? Oneness, like, isn't, well, okay, we're all one. That's it. No, that's not it. It's, and it's so much broader and it has such bandwidth or breadth to it. Breadth, is that the right word? It's such an
Expansive. It is
such an
expansive.
expansive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're not only on the mission, but for 40 plus years, you've been consistently doing the work. Now, it may have been in different ways that you've been doing it, but the thing I love is, we've had these conversations before. There's been many times where you just think, had enough. Like, I'm ready
Yeah.
to go and hang around with Joshua up there
Yeah.
versus,
That's right.
being here. And not in a solemn or negative way, just,
Right.
it's like, yeah. But you recognize and realize that sometimes we have to go through these, let's call them struggles or challenges or moments
Yeah.
where we feel like I've had enough. And what I've discovered, and tell me what you think, but what I've discovered for myself when I have those moments of feeling like I'm not sure, I'm not sure I want to, I'm not sure I can, um, this is all too much. Um, once I just accept it for what it is and I let go and I go and walk in nature or get some fresh air or do something positive for myself, I tend to find either a solution comes through or an idea comes through or I'm allowed to flow back into, it starts to dissipate. A bit like a storm. A storm rises and you think, oh my gosh, when is the storm going to be over? But it does. The storm always passes from my experience.
I certainly agree with that completely. In my youth, though, when I was a teenager, I got to the point where I thought I really wanted out of this lifetime so badly, I attempted suicide.
Yeah.
And that was not the answer.
Yeah.
Obviously I survived it, but some do not. Um, the experience of being human is not meant to be perfect or heaven or
Yeah.
totally peaceful all the time. If it were, there'd be no challenge to living a lifetime. There'd be no growth because everything is perfect as it is. Therefore, I'm not challenged to change or think differently or have those breakthroughs like you've talked about.
Yeah.
So I have also discovered, I think like you have, that when I'm feeling like this is all too heavy and I've just had enough and I want to put it down, yeah, I need to rest. It's
Mm.
time to rest, but not to quit.
Not to quit.
Not to quit, but to
Yeah.
rest. And I can let myself rest for long periods of time. There's
Yeah.
no, oh, I have to rest for just a week and then I get back on it, because that's also pressure.
Yeah.
So why don't I say to myself, I can set this down until I'm ready to pick it up again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
like
then
it.
I do.
Yeah.
It comes back to me because it is something truly that I want to do. And yet sometimes we all get tired. We all
Yeah.
get weary. And sometimes the challenges can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm thinking of a friend of ours, who has tremendous high goals, high hopes of
Very,
achievement.
very high.
And
Yeah.
that sometimes the challenges that person has encountered have just been devastating,
Devastating.
that would just
Totally.
knock anyone on their butt, you
Yeah.
know? And yet the person gets back up again, picks it up again, and carries on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So life is like that, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to your point, it's in differing measures. And so, you know, I think it's really here's a bit of a is it an oxymoron or is it a you'll probably give me the better word. Um, when you make like when you find a purpose, when you find let's just call it purpose, when you find purpose, I often find purpose tends to become quite big for a lot of people. It's very big, it's a big mission. And with big, probably like, if you've got a big company, you've got bigger challenges, more challenges, more problems. But you also have bigger wins as well. And so I think about that in relation to what I'm doing, in relation to what I'm doing to help the other person you were mentioning, without mentioning names. And and it's I think you have to get to that point where it's you've got to accept that this is how it's going to be, and the more that you go through these experiences, and this isn't just relative to being on purpose, by the way, this could be relative to, a real tough experience. Like, say, if someone does get hit by a car and then they've got to learn how to walk again, or they can't walk and they've got to learn how to be in a wheelchair, they've got to go through this real tough experience, which is difficult. But what actually tends to happen, not always, but tends to happen when they push through and they get to a point where they absolutely thrive and they do things that most people would just blow their mind. How on earth are
Yeah.
these people doing that? Because they just keep picking themselves up, keep picking themselves up, and they keep pushing through. And so I think when you've got an idea of something that is purposeful, and this is where I want to lead into. Whenever anyone asks me what is purpose, I'm sort of going off track here, but I'll bring it back. Whenever anyone says, how do I figure out what my purpose is? I say to them, look, find something that you love to do, is my suggestion, because once you figure out how to make that a purpose, you're probably you're probably going to want to ensure that you want to do it, right? Because if you find something that's purposeful and you don't enjoy doing it, I don't know how long you're actually going to do it, is the
Right.
first part. The second part is, and the part that I think is the most paramount, which I think really ties into what you do, is what I've recognized in anyone that I see that is operating at a very high level of purpose. The one key common denominator is they're helping a greater amount of people.
Mm.
And so I say to people, find something you love to do, and then find a way to make sure that that can give to others, or pay it forward, or that maybe you make a whole lot of money here and then you're able to put that money into whatever charity you want to do. So maybe it's not the work you want to do, but it can make a lot of money, and then you can get the money and you can go and put the money over here and help all these other people that you actually want to do.
Hmm.
So there's different ways to do it, but I think at the end of the day, going back to that purpose, and you know, you're going to have big challenges when you choose something like a mission of some sort that is on purpose, because it's usually going to be, oh, how do I help thousands of people, or how do I help millions of people? Some people have billions of people. Um, and so what I recognize with that, and all the books that I've read of people who have done incredible things, it's they don't do it in a couple of years or a few years, or sometimes 10 years to get started, and like our friend. But then it's another 2 decades, 3 decades. Like, it takes time. You have a very big mission. And I'd say the reason it's 40 plus years, hopefully it'll get to 80 plus years.
Yeah.
But John's like, no. But maybe it's carried on a legacy, right? And
Yeah.
and so with that, I think, the longer period that something is around that actually can give to more, and thinking about oneness, that is where I feel like it's tying in. I think that's why purposeful things often are about helping a greater amount of people. Helping the greater good is probably the term that's used the most.
Yes.
What do you think?
I find that all very fascinating, Brett, that you have correlated the size of the the people impacted by a purpose with the degree or height of the challenges faced along the way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That the bigger the mission, the more tidal waves you encounter on your way to it.
And on the flip, and just to add to that, with the duality, you also get some really big wins as well. So it's not
Right,
just
that's right. You were
not
saying
just all
about
big negative.
right. The bigger the yeah, the big negatives also had the bigger payoffs.
Bigger
Had bigger
payoffs.
payoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and it definitely is a view
Of
that
you.
I can support. I can understand it. And yet Joshua tells me if I find a purpose that I'm willing to do just for me, let's say all of this study I have done with Joshua was just for me.
Yeah.
and I didn't share it with anyone. Was it just for me? It can't be just for me, you see, because I am part of the whole. I can't be separated from the whole. So anything that affects what I think is just me is a gift to all that is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So everybody's
could,
purpose, even if they don't intend to reach hundreds of people, thousands of people, everyone's purpose will be met with challenge,
yeah.
even if they're doing it just for their family or for themselves. Like a man may say, well, my purpose is to earn a lot of money to make my family sustained wealthy so that they never have to worry about anything. And that's just my purpose, to take care of my family. He's doing that for all of us.
There you go. That's a good viewpoint.
It's a
Yeah.
different viewpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and it absolutely makes sense. And
And I think
again,
his challenges will be just as large. Sorry to interrupt you, buddy.
no, no, well,
Yeah.
and you're probably right. Well, you would be right. And my only thought was my only thought on the purpose of being a much smaller purpose to the point of having just as big a challenge. I would say from my limited viewpoint, maybe than you, from my limited viewpoint, I'd say I don't think that's quite accurate from how I see it.
Right.
And the reason I'm saying that is, of course, and depending on whose story we're talking about, right?
Correct.
For the person
Yeah.
who's looking after their family or the person who's just, enjoying life, enjoying the purpose of their life. But I know when I think about my own experience of life before I went on this journey, it's not to say I didn't have challenges. Absolutely. And I'd say most
Absolutely.
of the challenges I created myself. And then you would say, yeah, well, that's always the way. But but I found because I didn't choose to go and find a purpose at all. In fact, I just wanted to improve my life a bit more than what it was. And so, but along the way, I recognized and realized that, now 10 years ago, when I had my big breakdown moment, the download of writing the book, this one, ah, shameless plug, Supercharged Freedom.
Yes.
Your truth will set you free. When I got the download for the idea of the book, which took me another 4 years to start writing, and then another 3.5 years to get it to the publishing stage. Um, I remember thinking that it was when the download happened, and I've never wanted to write a book in my life before that, just to be really clear. And it was, as you'd read in my book if you buy it, and that was a joke. You don't have to
I
buy it.
have it.
I know you have it. I know you have it, but my point is that when I got the download, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'll write a book and help other stupid men figure out how to fix their lives. And as I started to properly write the book, within the first 6 months or so, I realized, okay, it's actually much bigger than the book. It's the book was just the let's call it the vehicle to get me moving towards what was going to be something more purposeful, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I've and I've gone off track just because you were talking into someone who's having a much smaller purpose or mission, legacy, whatever it might be, that they would have still bigger challenges. My perception on that idea is that it might seem to them that they have as big a challenge, but I would think, on what I've read as well as what I've experienced, I think they probably don't. If we could, if we could mathematically work out whose is big and whose is small, I reckon it wouldn't be as big. But from the perceived viewpoint of that individual having their experience, it probably is.
Right. It impacts them just as much. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Okay,
They're
that's a good way of putting
equally impacted, even if it doesn't. Okay, let's just use an example.
Yeah.
Someone building a big company may hire someone who does not fulfill their contract, and that the hiring person may end up being out thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Whereas, okay, the man in his own private life maybe went to a mechanic who didn't fulfill fixing the vehicle. That impact upon that person is the same to their psyche as it is to the person who lost thousands of dollars
Yeah.
hiring someone, or someone you just hired somebody and they still didn't fix the problem. You had to take it somewhere else and get it fixed. So you end up paying twice, so to speak, for the same service. But the impact upon the soul
Yeah.
is the same. My
Ah,
opinion, just
yeah.
my opinion.
That makes sense.
But yeah, you were saying the same thing, really, that in their mind, it's just as big
Yeah.
as the person who lost thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could be that we just remember that what we do for one, we do for all.
Mm,
What I do for self, I do for all. And the challenges that happen for me are not happening to me,
yeah.
but they're just as important in a life lived with a much narrower path as it is for someone living a lifetime with a very broad path.
Yeah.
So it's all a matter of we try to tease things apart about, what's better than or greater than or what hurt more or what
Yeah.
hurt less. The truth is everything we encounter is for our growth. Everything we are creating and
Yeah.
co-creating is for our benefit. And it's really hard to look at life that way when crap happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely is. And that's why I was saying in the beginning, it's easy to fall back into our, human selves and start to worry and get fearful and stressed and anxious and all those things. And that's why we have a really good tool called Positive Prime,
Yeah.
which you can use. But going back to the point, yeah, I think it's it's such a good like, and this is why I love that you're sharing these ideas and going a little bit deeper in regards to remembering that whatever you're experiencing as the individual for this lifetime, you're then passing it on because we're all connected. There's no disconnection.
Correct.
And on a lighter kind of tangent, I would say that's where, you can at times you can have this seemingly telekinesis, or you can have you feel someone and then all of a sudden they call and
Yes.
uh, so and sometimes it feels like, it's hit and miss, it's here and there, but it's just when you have that clarity in yourself that you're able to have that connection with another part of the whole. So
Yes.
I really get it, and I think it's like when I think about the content that you and Joshua deliver, and I think about the content that Abraham Hicks delivers. Abraham Hicks, of course, not completely, but a lot of the time it's talking into money, or it's talking into the law of attraction, or it's talking into getting into the vortex, the emotional vortex, and you want to be at the top of the vortex, not down the bottom. But there's also an order to it as well. But anyway, the point of Abraham Hicks, it has it has they're talking in because they're a collective. They're talking into the concepts for a human to be able to understand how to go through life and how to improve elements of their life. And that's from, my viewpoint and probably yours, or you'll tell me anyway, or tell us, I should say, is the viewpoint there is more of an external, you know, the, I was going to say the limited, probably not the limited, it's the external experience of humanity, which, like you've just said before, there's, everything is for our growth. So whether you I'll just use the concept that I just mentioned about Abraham Hicks. Whether you're experiencing not a lot of money, or you're experiencing a relationship that's not working, or you're experiencing work that you hate, it is all for your growth. And then going back to why we're doing this conversation, it's about making choices. So we do, and of course, there could be situations where you don't have full choice, if you're behind bars in prison, perhaps. But if but most of the time we all have a choice. And the choice may not be easy, like to leave a toxic relationship or to move out of an area that, is close to your family and your family are going to be annoyed that you've moved out of your, family neighborhood. And there's so many more different ideas that I can go with here, but the point is we all still have a choice. And so
Yes.
if you want a different experience, you're going to make choices. And Abraham talks into that, which I think is great. But what I really love about what you and Joshua talk into, and why I think it's so important that there's more conversation, not just the information, which is beautiful that you've delivered so much in, and there's books that you can mention. Um, I'm sure you have mentioned them on the show, but you could mention
Yeah.
them again. Probably got one I could pull from behind my bookshelf. Um, I have. I shouldn't say probably. I definitely have. But anyway, the point is why should people listen to you and Joshua? Because there's, as I said before, there's such an expansive amount of understanding. And it's the same, like, why do you keep listening to the messages from Abraham that a lot of the time are talking into the same thing? And Abraham, as you know, with Esther, will have a stage and then she'll get people up to come and ask questions, right? And that's great because it's, as I said before, like we're having now, it's a conversation and people get to ask questions more so than converse, probably. Ask a question and then Abraham will do the conversing or answering. But with what you're talking about, like with anything, the logical, conscious thinking mind needs reminders. And especially in this world of noise like at the moment and it's going to get noisier, but there's so much information. And so the logical mind has a very small bandwidth. 40 bits of information per second is what they've measured, compared to the subconscious mind, and there's another deeper aspect to it, but 11 million bits of information per second. And we call the subconscious the unconscious because
Correct.
we don't need to, we're not logically able to process it.
It's below the surface of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so my point here is that this is why I think it's really valuable that there's someone like you and Joshua that are able to relay the information and have conversations with amazing people like myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say to you, it'd be great to have you having these conversations with other people with maybe different viewpoints as well. And that way people can think, oh, how does it relate to me? How does it relate to my life right now? What can I take from this that I can actually implement into what's happening in my world? Oh, I can make this decision. And I think the context where I'm going to finish here with is that it enables people to, and I'm going to use the word reconnect. It enables people to reconnect. My light's gone off. Reconnect with their soul, like reconnect with their spiritual essence. And that's what I find with when I listen to all of your videos. It's that I can, yes, I'm hearing some aspects that Jordan is obviously talking about in the way that we might live, but then we get, a real in-depth understanding as well, sometimes from Jordan, but oftentimes from Joshua, that enables us to recognize and realize that there's so much more unseen
Yes.
that is very, very real. And so
Yes.
as humans, we're so caught up in all the things that are happening in this. I can touch this, I can see this, I can feel
Yeah.
this.
Manifestation. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Caught
manifested reality.
caught
Yeah.
up in manifestation. Yeah.
Yeah. So hence, I'll finish here.
Uh,
Again, that's why I love that you're doing what you're doing because I think it's really important.
oh, thank you so very much, Brett. I do appreciate that. And I do think that people who are ready to learn what Joshua Jordan have to offer will come. They
Yeah.
will come. And I need to set aside any striving that I've been trying to attract more audience rather than just surrender it and let it be.
Yeah.
And the ones who are ready will come. And Joshua says, no doubt about it. But Joshua is wanting to connect with his family because it is time for me to start the passing off of the baton, as they say, in the relay race. I've run my part of the race, and I'm reaching out now, wanting to hand off the baton to the next runner, so that I may then turn and relax and
Yeah.
move on to my next mission, which is off the planet. So cool.
Yeah.
The one that to hand the baton to, or it may be a group I hand a baton to, is just the time has come. I
Yeah.
do want to attract those individuals that will pick up enough of the seventh major understanding to carry it forward.
Yeah.
Because the age of peace, love, abundance, and joy is on the horizon. It's out there on the edge, and yet I've run my race. And so it's time to find the next person who will plant more seeds
Yeah.
and water more seeds that will grow. So that's where we
Good.
are.
That's good. And look, not good that, from my perspective as your friend, that you're talking about that, but I do get it. And I would say to you that it could also take some time for the right person to be up to speed and, you know,
Yes.
you know, able
Yeah.
to.
I
Yeah.
put a lot, I hope they don't need to put 40 years into it,
No,
but
no, no. Yeah, no.
I'm a slow learner, I think.
Yeah. Well, no,
Yeah.
you're not a slow learner. You've you've been sharing it for that long. But yeah, I'm sure it will. And just as you said, I think I've been sharing that quite a bit in the surrender piece, letting go, which is not, you know, respectfully not easy for a lot of us, especially
Correct.
when the manifested reality that you just mentioned, when it's tough, when it's a struggle, or it feels difficult and feels hard, or feels a lot of resistance. It's hard for us to let go. But when we
Yes.
do, it's amazing what occurs.
Peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It brings peacefulness. The striving and the struggling is the challenge that causes us to grow.
yeah.
So, it's not easy to run up a mountain, right?
I've done it.
So,
Yep.
yeah, you've done it. I haven't.
Yeah,
But you run as far as you can and then you rest,
yeah.
right? And so,
Well,
uh,
actually, you crawl from my experience.
okay. You tell me how you actually get to the top is you
Yeah,
keep crawling even when you can't run. So,
yeah,
yeah, that is striving and that is struggle, in
yeah,
my opinion. You're still applying force to get somewhere.
yeah,
And when we can set that aside, do a surrender, turn around and enjoy the view from where we are, because it's still probably a beautiful vista where
yeah.
you've reached at least part of the way up the mountain. You can turn and see the beauty beneath you. I
It's
do want to say, though, that our responsibility is not a burden.
mm,
Our responsibility is power.
yeah,
We have reclaimed our power from blaming circumstances or from blaming other people or blaming manifestation for my challenges. I have co-created those challenges, and in co-creation, I will resolve them.
yeah.
And
And you and I mean, we could go on with this particular point
true.
for a long time because, it's being the victim of life. And many of our brothers and sisters, and they are, I was doing it for decades, being the victim of life is happening to me, and not taking responsibility, and trying to push things onto other people versus, taking the load
Yeah.
myself. So I absolutely agree with you, and I think this is where I believe the deeper understanding that people get, the individuals who are feeling connected to you and Joshua, they will get the understanding on a deeper level, which should actually help them, with everyday life, their manifested reality that they've got.
Yes, it certainly could.
It
Yes.
could, yeah. So that's my plug for you. Make sure you
Oh,
listen.
thank you so much.
Make sure you watch, listen to Joshua Jordan every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been a blessing to my life, and I hope it's for a lot longer, not as short as you're trying to make it sound. At least for for
I've
the
already
time
lived a
passing.
lot longer than I thought I would, so
Yeah.
whatever. I may end up being Methuselah, who knows?
Yeah, well, who knows? But yeah, I value you as a very cherished friend, and so yeah. So
Thank you.
my and actually, I'm just going to lean into this a little bit because my best friend of 32 years, as I know you know, um, seeing if I've got a photo. Yes, I have. My best friend of 32 years, his name was Con. He passed away on my birthday
Mm,
and in 2021. And do you know if I hadn't have reconnected with my spirituality, I think that would have torn me apart. So I'm thinking about him because thinking about you if you decide you're ready to pass on. My belief and understanding was thankfully at a point where I was not okay losing my best friend, but okay to understand that this is obviously the time that he's chosen to move on. And
mm.
he had just turned 50, so he was my age that I am
Wow.
now,
Young man.
3 years ago. Yeah, young guy. And and the circumstance was not great, but the point is he it's like as a human individual person that we are, I think it's really important that we get to a place where it's not about forgetting someone, but it's about allowing someone to make their transition if that's the time that they need to make their transition.
Yeah,
As much as we love them and don't want them to go, right?
exactly.
Because as I've said to you, Con for me was an earth angel. Like he was the only friend in my whole time on this planet that was always, always, always checking on me, making sure I was okay, coming to visit me from Melbourne. Um, yeah, and if I needed something, he was always there. Uh, in another, not breakdown, but certainly a difficult period of partying way too hard at the age of 26,
Mm,
27, he thankfully, leveled me out and got me into my own business and yeah, so, or helped me to set up my own business. And so, and so I really could have taken that really hard. But
yes.
I think for all of us, if we can get to that place, this is why I'm leaning into it, because we get to that place where we can really understand that there is no death. It might be the death of the
Body.
person that we love in this particular moment, but they absolutely are not gone. They're not gone.
Correct. That's right.
They're definitely not gone. And I think that's where each person should get to. Doesn't mean you don't miss them. Doesn't mean like I love looking at him. I love remembering him every single day. I'm sure I speak to him. And my other friend Christian, who also died on my son's birthday,
Mm,
which again, for me is this in this experience of life that I'm having, two of your best friends pass away on significant birthdays. It has to be for a reason. Has to be
yeah.
showing you something for yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's enough
Yeah.
of me going on the tangent. We've gone for well over the hour.
Oh, yeah, we
It's
do
been a
need to conclude. But Brett, I want to take a moment to also acknowledge you and the role you have played in my life. Your friendship is valuable beyond jewels, and I will always love you. And I, even after I transition off, you're going to hear me laughing and
I
you're
know.
going to hear me talking in your ear. And, and sometimes you'll probably say, leave me alone. So I would like you to talk a little bit about a new project you're
Yeah.
launching. Please feel free to share that with my audience. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. So, it's funny, it's not too disconnected from what we're talking about, especially when it comes to change and especially when it comes to choice. Um, I think we all get to a certain place at different areas of our life where we go, well, maybe not maybe not the words, is this enough? Or is this all it is? But we might go, I really want to go here, but for some reason I'm stuck here. And that was how that's what I was experiencing. I know for you, you were experiencing more of a procrastination, like you know what you need to do, but you're not doing it.
Yeah.
So it was more of a get the wheels moving for you. Wasn't like teaching, it wasn't necessarily me having to teach you a hell of a lot. But for what I've created, which is an upgrade of everything that I've done over the last 7 or 8 years,
Mhm.
it's called the metamorphosis method. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
It
Metamorphosis
is.
method.
I love it.
But what is a metamorphosis? Well, you know, some people, when they see there's underneath that logo of mine, supercharged logo, there is a Superman t-shirt. I don't have my business card here to show. But you know what Superman's symbol is. So,
Yeah.
what is Clark Kent turning into Superman? It is a metamorphosis of a
Yeah.
sort, different to a maybe a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, but still the same kind of element. It's the same creature, but it has upgraded into what we might, you know, as humans, we look at a butterfly, we think a butterfly is more beautiful than a caterpillar. Maybe. Maybe some people like caterpillars more. I don't know. Anyway, the point is they become their, butterfly becomes their super self in its way.
Hmm.
So and so the metamorphosis method isn't about helping men become Superman or women become Wonder Woman, unless that's, like me from the age of one, unless that's their, the thing that they're locked into.
Alter ego.
Alter ego. Now, you don't necessarily need an alter ego, but the point of the metamorphosis is working out where would you love to go? Like, where are you currently? And then through the process, without telling you there's 12 steps. It's a 12-step program, not about stopping drinking alcohol, um, unless that's important to you. But the point of it is we get to the point where from the beginning, figure out where we are, where we want to go, what are the roadblocks that we think might occur? And then I, as your guide or your mentor, will help you figure out what are potentially things that you're not seeing. That's the whole point, as you know, having a mentor is we can see blind spots or we can give you perspective that you may not have considered, just like you've done today with me in our conversation. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. And it's a slight variation or it's a slight extension even on what you're already thinking, but actually it adds to the complexity of your thinking. And so the end of the program, the 12th step, is about you becoming this embodied leader. So it's about you, you know, maybe putting on your cape or maybe opening up your wings. But the point is that you get to upgrade. You mentioned it through the conversation as well. The point of life is to grow. And I would say whether you think you are or aren't, where you like everything does grow. And and within that, some growth looks like dying. We might
Yeah.
say in a house, some of the if you don't clean the walls, well, there's going to be some mold or mildew, or if you don't clean the outside, then whatever. There's going to be growth of some sort, and some of it we call aging, or it's breaking down. But actually, that's still growth from my perspective. Everything is growing. Now, the point is you will grow, but you might follow the same loop. You might be in a trap loop. And
Yeah.
so, because of the subconscious, the unconscious mind. And so when we figure out what are the parts that can enable you to break out of that, then it gives you the ability to really move in the right direction. And so the steps that I've created through this program, they help people to not just, because as you know, you don't go from here to there in one big leap. You actually have to go through the stages. And so I think I've created a pretty good, a pretty good method to helping people to become the metamorphosis that they're hoping to have.
I have no
So,
doubt that
yeah,
you will coach people through their metamorphosis.
good.
And I think it's probably a much more advanced program than the one I originally joined with you,
Yeah,
because I know you keep growing and evolving your knowledge in how to lead, how to show people the way, how to help them along. So I
yeah.
have absolute confidence in you as a mentor and a coach, and I highly recommend your programs.
Oh, thank you, my
Any of
friend.
them.
Yeah. And look,
Yeah,
just to end on this for the conversation, I'd say, um, going back to the point about finding something you love. Now, I didn't go looking for mindset or metaphysics, but when I realized what changes could occur, and then of course did occur, I was like, I was hooked, and so, you know, some people will say, find something that you love to do and do that as your career, and you'll
yeah.
never have to work a day in your life. Now, that may not be 100% accurate, but I would say it is much, much more enjoyable if you find something that you absolutely enjoy, because there's no, well, I'm making a statement that could be incorrect, but I'm going to make the statement anyway. My belief is that if you find something you love, you're going to want to keep learning more about it because you're fascinated by it, right?
Yeah,
Most days, I'm learning more about mindset, sometimes completely in a different direction to try and figure out how did they get that view? Like, oh, that's interesting. And then I'll go down that, let's call it a rabbit hole and
yeah,
start to, take it in. So when it comes to the point of me upgrading any program I do, sometimes I get surprised at what I've come up with and go, oh, how did I come up with that? But because there's so much that I'm reading and taking in that at a point, I recognize once it's done, I go, ah, that's because of that book, and that's because of this information that I've taken in, and I can start to put or connect the dots. And I'd say not that everyone should go out and find a career that, is about coaching and mentoring people, but find something that you really love to do. You'll want to keep learning about it. And not only will you grow, you might find that you want to pass it on to other people, and then that
yeah,
helps them grow. And then you feel good.
exactly. Yeah, right. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, my friend. Anything you want to finish on? Any final statement for people?
No, I don't think I have anything to conclude our conversation with, but thanks for talking with me. I think that what we covered will be useful to those who find it.
Oh, I love it.
So, yeah, thank
Beautiful.
you so much,
Thank
man.
you.
You
Appreciate you.
have a great day.
You too.
Thank you for listening. We hope you heard something to ponder and gained inspiration for your journey. Please join us again next time. Joshua says, let the light grow, let love show, and let your life be fun.